Hey YouTube, in this video I'm going to be doing a deck profile on my latest and greatest Kagero deck. So this is my Dragonic Overlord the Great, or Perdition deck. I don't really consider it a Perdition deck because, so I was asking people in the comments when I was opening the boxes, like, who would you pair the Great with if you couldn't pair him with Dragonute? So because I pulled 3 of these, all I had to do was get one more and then I was able to build a deck. So this is going to be my latest Dragonic Overlord deck. It features 4 Perdition, Emperor, Dragon, Dragonic Overlord the Great. I think that this Legion Vanguard will be pretty strong. We've already seen him in the Japanese meta stand the test of time. Even though the generation stuff came out, he still seems to be pretty popular. So I think he'll retain his value for a long time, and he will be one of the better decks to run, one of the more consistent decks to run also, because he has a restanding Vanguard. He's easy to restand. Yes, he only swings once with the Vanguard, but he still helps disrupt the opponent's field, and he can win it kind of like in a way that Maelstrom Reverse can win, like in the long run. So, really good card overall. I'm glad that I managed to pull 3 of him, so I just had to get 1 more, and then was able to build the deck. So, fairly straightforward restanding Vanguard. The backup Vanguard that I'm running with him is Perdition Dragon, Breakdown Dragon. So this guy is really meant for his own kind of build, but the nice thing about Dragonic Overlord the Great is he only really uses 1 Counterblast. This guy does have a hefty cost of Counterblast 3 to retire. Basically, like he can retire a whole column, and if the opponent only has 2 rear guards or less remaining, he can unflip 1 damage. So he's kind of like retired 2 for Counterblast 2. Most of the time, it will be retired 2 for Counterblast 3. The only time it won't be is if you're able to have like 1 interceptor on their field's already dead, and then you go ahead and activate his effect. That's the best time to activate his effect. Or if you were able to earlier on, if you cleared out their like one of the back row, like the Vanguard booster or something, that's another way he can get his unflip 1. But most of the time, it's going to be Counterblast 3. Kind of treat him. I tend to treat him like Zaharias in my Algo Force deck. I don't really want to have to use him. This guy's kind of like Tetra Burst, so he's the one I want to hope to ride first, and then just basically play the whole game out using him and rewriting him if I need more soul. Whereas this guy, the only time I'll ever ride him really in this deck is if I draw into him first and I just want the twin drive. But with Stride coming out, it doesn't matter. I mean, this can be a discard fodder for Stride. So, I mean, he's still pretty good. Otherwise, I would recommend running, not really Dragonute, because he does use a lot of Counterblast, kind of like this guy, but it's the same kind of thing. But Pain Laser Dragon surprisingly works well with Dragonic Overlord the Great as well. Next for grade 2s, obviously 4 Perdition Dragon, Dragonic Neoflame. He's a Legion mate for Overlord the Great, and he does have a pretty good effect too. And then 4 of the Legion mate for Breakdown Dragon. Nice thing about this Legion mate is that he gains 5,000 power when a rearguard in the same column as him is put in the drop zone. So, I mean, you can attack with Dragonic Overlord first to the rearguard in front of this guy, kill it, and then this guy's going to go up to 14k without a booster. So that's pretty good in that regard. So another reason why I think this Legion pair does fit in really well with the Great. And then the only other grade 3 that I'm running is 3 of Ilham. Some people will run Whirlwind Dragon. You can do it if you want. I would prefer to run this guy, mainly because this guy, Tarayev gains power, so he's kind of like my 12k. I kind of treat him like a Whirlwind Dragon substitute, so I don't really need Whirlwind Dragon. And this guy also, he can retire. When you Legion, he can retire something in the same column as him. So he works really well with Breakdown Dragon. When Breakdown Dragon goes Legion, and this guy's already in the field, he sets you up to do the Counterblast 3, retire the opposite column, and then you get to unflip 1. So that's another reason why I think this is the best alternate grade 2 besides the Legion mates for the deck. And he doesn't use any Counterblast. So that's the other thing. This is Counterblast 3. Neoflame's Counterblast 1, Dragonic Overlord Counterblast 1. So there's a lot of Counterblasts, so that's why this guy is a pretty good pick. Next for grade 1s, 4 Dragon Dancer Maria Sentinels. It's whatever Sentinel you want, really. I'm not running Quintet Walls because the deck does gain enough hand advantage, and the deck does cycle through a lot because it does double twin drive with the Greats effect. So I don't really feel that the Quintet Wall is necessary. There's also lots of ways to discard, like using Gojo and using Calamity Tower. So there's a lot of ways to manipulate the drop zone early on. So that's why another reason why I don't think the Quintet Wall is necessary, and also because the Quintet Wall uses Counterblast. The deck is so Counterblast heavy that there isn't really room for it. But if you insist on running Quintet Wall, I mean, I don't want to say that you don't have to run a Quintet Wall, but just don't run more than 1. Next, 3 Dragon Monk Gojo. This guy is just really good at, like I said earlier, turn 1 ride, you can't attack, you can cycle through and draw a card. So he does help you, he helps speed up Legion. Next, 3 of this new Perdition Battler. This guy is good, is another way to unflip 1 damage. And he does Soul Blast 1 when something in the same column as him is retired or put in the drop zone. It has to be during the main phase, though, to activate this effect. And you can basically Soul Blast 1, and you can unflip 1. So it's kind of good at setting up Legion, or help fill the drop zone for a re-Legion, or just help getting more Counterblasts without having to run the Soul Blast 2 unflip 2. And then 2 of this Perdition Battler. This is kind of like, this is a 10k booster when something in the same column, or actually no, yeah, it's in the same column, gets retired, he becomes a 10k booster. So it does stack, so if you ideally you want him to be like behind a rear guard, and when you retire a whole column with Breakdown Dragon's effect, this guy becomes like 11k. So it's pretty good. Actually 13k, right? 13k booster. That's pretty good. But only really 2 copies. There's not enough room. The grade 1 lineup is really hard to figure out. So I just went with 2 Calamity Tower Wyvern. Just a good Soul Blast to draw 1 card. Like I said, there's a lot of draw power in the deck. There's a lot of cycling through the drop zone. So that's why the perfect guards at 4 is good enough. For the trigger lineup, I'm running the standard 4 draw, 8 critical, and 4 heal. So I just went with this lineup because you kind of want the draws, especially for like to draw into your grade 2, like this guy for instance, or Neoflame, so you can get their effects off. But otherwise, I mean, you can try running 12 critical. 12 critical Dragonic Vanguards are really good. Look at Minerva. But it's just really personal preference. If you want to run a draw, you can also run the one that can retire grade 0s. That one's good. The only reason why I'm not really running that in here is because it's not really necessary, and Breakdown Dragon is a Counterblast 3. So even if I did have it, I kind of wouldn't really want to use it. And then the starter is Perdition Dragon Petal Flare Dracokid. This is the starter that's really meant for Dragonic Overlord the Great. I also chose him because his effect doesn't require counterblasts, and this guy uses 3 counterblasts, so he's the better starter for the deck. So that was basically my Dragonic Overlord the Great and Breakdown deck. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know what you think of the grade 1, grade 2 lineup. What would you change, if anything? As always, guys, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.